Hello, everyone. Welcome to Exit's Conscious Revolution platform, 7th panel in a row, which opens up an exciting and so far unprocessed field of discussion and learning. Panel entitled Conscious Sexuality puts a focus on a sexual energy, that absolute and exhaustible source of creativity that has the power to create the greatest miracle of all, life. So today we will discover how to use this mighty sexual energy to transform and significantly improve every aspect of your life, mental and physical health, relationships with yourself and others, creative expressions, and overall happiness and well-being. You will learn how to increase your life force to stay young and healthier than ever before, how to nurture confidence in everyday life, how to love and accept your body and yourself fully, and how to use this energy to live an abundant and fulfilled life. This panel will also offer you how to upgrade and change your relationship toward your own sexuality, enhancing your pleasure potential, boosting your enjoyment, and increasing your capacity for deep intimacy. So buckle it up. It will be an amazing ride. First of all, I would like to connect us all and to ground all together. So please take a comfortable seat of your choice. If you're sitting in the chair or sofa, please put your feet on the ground. Let's all ground together. If you are in the easy pose, just sit comfortably, spine straight, chin in, chest out. You can massage your thighs, relax your ankles, relax your knees, relax your hips. You can squeeze and relax your pelvic floor a couple of times. Relax your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Relax your forehead. You can put your palms on your heart center and take a couple of deep breaths. Let's all connect through our hearts. Feel the life force, feel the breath of life beating inside of you and reminding you of the beautiful life that we all have. Take a big inhale through both nostrils and that exhale through the mouth. Booster, you can help me. Inhale through the nostrils and sigh it out. That's right. One more time. Yeah, just enjoy the ride. And please open up your heart and open up your mind to receive this beautiful knowledge with intention to listen actively and consciously and to receive all the knowledge for your highest good and for the highest good of us all, for the highest good of our society. And when you're completely ready, open and steady and peace, open your eyes in your own rhythm. We have great panelists with us today. Triambika Ma Vive, who is a leader for shamanic sexuality seminars worldwide and provides somatic healing and mentoring for emotional and sexual empowerment, featured on Playboy TV, The Learning Channel, and Aubrey Marcus Fit for Service. Triambika is also lead facilitator with ISTA, the International School of Templar Arts, and offers paramount somatic sexual practitioners trainings across the globe. With over 25 years of experience, Triambika brings for her depth, wisdom, and keen intuition to support people of all gender to release deeply held limiting beliefs and heal traumas to create self-empowerment, healthier relationships, and extraordinary intimacy. Triambika, it's a pleasure having you here tonight with us. Good evening. Good Good morning.
Thank you. Good evening. Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Booster Rådvik, the co-owner of Embodied Intimacy Training, a certified sensory motor psychotherapist in private practice. He specializes in the individual, couple, and group therapy for trauma and attachment-related issues around intimacy, sex, and relationship. Booster, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say it's very difficult to say sensory motor psychotherapy.
Sensory motor.
Some people say motorcyclist therapist, so we can keep it simple.
Sensory motor psychotherapist. Is it
yes.
okay?
It's perfect. I'm just, it's like a tongue twister.
Can you please do it again one more time? Just
sensory motor psychotherapy.
And the breath?
Yes.
And Jordan Gray, a sex and relationship coach with an engaged audience of over 80 million readers worldwide. He's best-selling author, and his writing has been featured in publications such as Vogue, Forbes, Cosmo, Self, the New York Times, and many more. Jordan, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
And I will be your host. My name is Senić, and I am Kundalini Yoga teacher, certified at Kundalini Research Institute. I'm co-owner and instructor of the first pole dance fitness studio in Serbia, Pole Dance Fitness Belgrade, where we empower women to awaken their sensuality through movement and dance. I'm also a presenter, reporter, and journalist on TV and radio show formats, but also a member of the first hip-hop female band in Serbia. So let's begin. Let's dive in by first introducing the concept of conscious sexuality to our audience. So Triambika, please share what conscious sexuality is.
Well, it's a big topic, but in the simplest form for the purpose of our panel, conscious sexuality for me is a path to experience ourselves as sexual beings with more awareness, with more mindfulness, and to be mindful of the subtle and not so subtle ways that we may resist or open to desire, pleasure, connection. So we're really, as we engage in a path of conscious sexuality, it begins with me, begins with you, begins with the individual. We often think of our sexuality as connected to another person, which is certainly a big part of it. But to really begin to bring love and attention and connection to this body that is experiencing the sexuality, and to bring more awareness to what she needs, what he needs, what this body needs, in connection to our emotional body, as well as what our mental body needs, like really aligning ourselves so that when we open to a sexual engagement, there's more of us present, right? There's not some part of us that left the room so that we could perform the act. We're all the way here, all the way conscious, all the way present. And again, that begins with the work that we do with ourselves.
So what does path of sexual wholeness means? Is it this connection that you're speaking about, like connection of the body, mind, and the soul? Can you tell us what this concept of sexual wholeness is? Triambika.
Yes, definitely something that I'm very connected to as what I stand for, right? Is wholeness. Wholeness is the quality of being complete or undivided, right? So we're not broken. A lot of us experience brokenness in our sexuality, and sexual brokenness is one of the deepest types of brokenness we can feel because it's so inherent to our core being, to our primal self. And so the wholeness is that actually we are whole, and we've had experiences that have left us feeling broken, but to really reclaim and bring us back to our center and bring us back to the recognition that I don't believe that we were ever fully broken, right? That we actually are whole at our core. And that really requires us to empty out and clear the stuff, the traumas and the past experiences that were distasteful or uninvited, and the things that start to kind of glom onto our emotional body through our sexual experiences, that we want to actually learn to clear and heal and release these experiences from the body, so that we can be a more whole vessel, so that when we receive a sexual engagement, we're receiving it from a whole place, not from a contracted, broken place.
Later on, we will get like the real tools, how to make the first steps and what actions we can make in order to heal these traumas and things that you're telling us about. And how does one awaken this sexual consciousness?
So again, I mean, we begin by awakening and being willing to awaken consciousness, or I should say just awareness in our body, and begin to recognize where are the places that we don't, right? Where do we go to sleep? Where do we freeze? Where do we sort of disconnect or disassociate from our sexual experiences? Because many of us do, right? Many of us will actually like disassociate. Some part of us is there, but our mind might be somewhere else. I mean, I won't go into the specifics of how that operates, but basically we want to bring our whole being into the space. And that might mean that when I bring my whole being into a space of sexuality, and I want to awaken sexual consciousness, I might need to also awaken some of the feelings or emotions that have been present, that I've been sort of stuffing down, pushing aside, so that I could perform the sexual act. And actually, no, what if we brought it all, right? So we can awaken whatever is there, the subtle experience of what's there. And that requires trust. First and foremost, trust in our body, that what our body is telling us can be actually a source of wisdom, a source of insight. And that if I am with another being where I can bring my trust to communicate, that communication is the beginning of activating sexual consciousness, right? In this connection, right? The communication is so key, because so often we're not really communicating, not really, we're not saying, we might be saying some things. I'm attracted to you. You're so hot. I want to take you. I want to have you. But it's rarely a communication that actually opens the heart and allows true intimacy to come through. So that communication piece is essential, as well as consent, right? Stepping more into a high level consent conversation, like what is okay with me? What am I willing to experience in this engagement, right? And this is where consciousness happens, is in the awareness of what's actually going on, and we're able to bring it through in a conversation, in a communication with a lover. And these are baby steps. Like, obviously, when we go further down the road into activating sexual consciousness, we're then opening up now more realms of breath, of connection to the channels in our body where the breath moves, and how to access sexual energy and bring it up through the body and around, so that we're not just limiting it to our sexual organs. But I really wanted to focus on the baby steps, because I think that's the piece that's where we start. For those who need that, it's really important that they get that foundational piece around communication and consent, and getting to understand that the body is speaking to us all the time. So to really listen to what it's saying.
Thank you, Triambika.
Not just what our mind is saying.
Amazing. Thank you. What a download.
Booster.
Yes.
For the concept of embodied intimacy, can you tell us what this concept means, and what is the embodied intimacy? Debate.
Well, I just want to go off of what Triambika was speaking about here, and just share a little bit. Sitting here, listening to this, knowing that it's my turn soon, I can feel a bit of a tightening happening in my body. I can listen to my voice. It's a bit hoarse. and there's a bit of a warmth, as in a nervous like sweat going on. And as I'm sharing that, I begin to feel a little bit more ability to actually breathe deeper, and I begin to look around in the room, and I want to increase my kind of somatic sense of safety. I want to take some distance to kind of get more of a feeling for myself, like, hey, I have legs. And there's a spontaneous laughter coming, because like now I can actually create some more of a somatic sense of safety, where I can trust myself. So like, okay, now I can actually begin this conversation from a place of, you know, I'm engaged in regulating how close I want to be with you as I'm close to myself. So this is the embodiment. This is what Triambika was talking about, trusting one's body, the wisdom of the body. There's a orientation device within here that has been developed during a lot of years. And if I can actually begin to ride this animal that I am and begin to track when this animal is safe, I can begin to play. I can begin to create. You know, if you look at children who are safe, they play, they imagine, they explore. If you look at children who are not safe, they become small little adults. So this is where, like, can we realize that we're living in a world where we all fear one another? That there's a lot of trauma culturally passed down, that there's a part of me that's longing for connection, part of me is afraid of connection. And no one taught me really how to regulate the feelings and the impulses from my body. It's more like put the lid on and control them with my mind and then perform. So for me, embodied intimacy is about starting where, thinking about Triambika was speaking about, those baby steps. It's basically what happens in my body as I step into this room with beings. Where do I contract? Where do I open? And how can I be into me? I see like intimate with my body so that I can approach you as I am. So for me, it all starts there. Now from there on, I can begin to speak what's real. I can speak the truth. I can begin to speak, build trust. Because you can feel when I when I speak about the tightening in my chest, you're feeling that too. Because there's just one nervous system. It's beyond time and space. We all feel when somebody's talking and they're nervous and they're ignoring it. We feel that. When somebody's repressing, we get to express. So we think that we're isolated in our minds, but we are all over. We're connected all the time through all times. So to realize that we are one in this dimension. And then it becomes really amazing if you can begin to find a way back into safety. Then this magical, like, wow, you too, yeah, me too. And then you and I become this wee. And this is the mystery, this is the magic, this is the adventure of intimacy. We are taken on an adventure versus where I'm going to check the boxes of who I think you need to be to meet my needs and how you fit into my life and all of that stuff, which is important to a certain degree, yet it doesn't really work that well to find a partner from your mind. It is basically just based upon avoidance of that bad thing not happening again. So to actually access the embodiment and the intimacy with embodiment is like the first step into me showing up as myself.
You sort of already answered the question how embodied intimacy can improve our lives, but you can give us more of maybe informations, more of a knowledge about what can it bring to us. How can it improve?
Yeah, I think for me, a couple of things. It can increase the level of pleasure, and it can also increase my level of my capacity to embrace pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to be using pleasure as a way to avoid the fact that I carry trauma. Just the fact that I'm human of this culture. I have trauma, as in I have reactions to people that doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense that I'm scared of a woman or a man in particularly, but I am, you know, I mean, yeah, anyhow, so that I also need to and I developed the capacity to stay with this traumatic activation as I was speaking into this cold sweat, the tension and whatever else. And then if I go a deeper layer, you would see depression, worthlessness, low self-esteem, dissociation was mentioned. You'll begin to see a whole human ball of pain inside of me. And that another part wanted to just cover over, saying, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. So embodied intimacy offers you a body in which you can begin to slowly embrace and actually begin to, in a way, use what I thought I needed to cut off and take away and fix as the very building material for real connections. Like, I'm afraid too. And in that moment, that is a courage, that's a courageous act. So now we're like, intimacy takes guts. So that's one thing. And then the pleasure is like, actually, when we begin to realize you hear me and you feel me, you see me, something changes in my body, or it opens up like a flower. It comes alive. And now we're here. And now this is a pleasurable, something wants to happen. We are taken by life. So it becomes joyous to connect. It's natural. It's nothing I need to figure out ahead of time. It's becoming more and more a baseline from where I can relax into my being, and from there come from fullness and share myself.
So definitely we should embrace our pain, because it's making us doing all these beautiful things and heal ourselves and coming to this big pleasure that we are sharing tonight, today. Thank you, Jordan. As a sex and relationship coach, please share, what does the concept of conscious relating mean? And what does a healthy sexuality looks like?
I can definitely speak to that. Yeah, from my worldview, a conscious relationship is one that is sourced in love and truth and self-awareness and self-responsibility, more than it is sourced in drama, ego, blame, games, gaminess. It is, yeah, just really being with love and truth and what is. And while I think there's a lot of value in, the realm that we're in that is all about other and about friction and about experiencing other people, really what Triambika said, it's all, it all comes down to your relationship with yourself, with your own body. Our relationship to our partner, or to the weather, or to our physical sensation or emotions arising. It's all, how are you relating to the thing? So yes, there's an other person across from you, but how are you being with all these things in any given moment? And so, it's unavoidable work. I think that's a huge gift, because relationship, especially long-term intimate relationships, sexual relationships, it's deeply humbling work, and as it should be, because we're here to have our rough edges kind of sanded down, like we're just rocks in a rock tumbler getting smoother over the course of several decades. So yeah, conscious relationship is just, can you stay awake while experiencing the friction of other people, whether that's your partner or someone who's walking too slow down the sidewalk in front of you one day. It's constant. The teachers are everywhere if you're noticing them. And your second question of what does a healthy sexuality look like?
Mhm.
And I feel like Triambika spoke to it so well, so I don't want to belabor the point too much, but it really comes down to, from my perspective, two people that, or any number of people, doesn't have to be two, a number of people who are deeply sourced in their bodies, who are deeply connected to their desire, their arousal, they're in full consent, full communication. They're not engaging in mind reading sex where you're just both running these sexual scripts of what should happen, or, you know, not overly performative, but just showing up and following the emotion, following the sensation, and being loving in real time. I think that the sexual scripts that we get make it seem a lot more complicated and rigid than it actually is when it's healthy and dynamic and fluid.
Speaking of consciousness in every aspect of our lives, I would like us all to speak a bit about pornography, and just a little bit, because I think it's a huge topic that we should make another panel just dedicated to pornography. So what is the role of pornography when we speak about conscious sexuality? You can all share. Triambika, you can tell your opinion and then we can all share.
Okay, so start with me.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I'll say is that I am not one to shame or make wrong someone's choices to either work in the pornographic industry or to view pornography. Certainly pornography can, in some situations, have a strong role in activating fantasy and desire and you know, spice up pleasure in a marriage. I mean, there's a use for it. When it comes to conscious sexuality, where they veer off is that that's just it, is that one is more related to the fantasy and one is more, and the other is related more to actually being present and aware of what is actually happening. And so when we experience too much of something that isn't actually real, right, where there's a fantasy playing out, there's something that's occurring that isn't actually how real people have sex in many cases. I do realize there's more conscious porn happening these days, so I'm speaking more of the mainstream. That we create a disconnect between what actually happens in a human body with human connection. So, you know, as a temporary fun sort of assortment of ways to create more visual enjoyment, cool. As a way of life, to live your life through porn, I'd say that it's missing a lot of realness and connection to self as well as other. When I have clients that work that use a lot of porn, you know, rather than just taking it away from them altogether, say, okay, well, if you must use porn, then watch it for a minute, then turn away from it. And if you're going to ejaculate, don't ejaculate to the screen. Like let your orgasm be yours, right? Let it be a cultivation of your own energy, not something that you're pointing at a screen that doesn't really exist. And furthermore, when relating to another person, like recognizing that there's sensitivities that happen in sexuality, there's emotions, there's a whole bunch of nuance that occurs, and to make sure not to miss that. And too much porn will often have us sort of override all of that nuance and sensitivity and just sort of see the object of sex in front of us rather than the real being and the body that requires a certain amount of attention, touch and connection to be aroused and alive and available for a sexual interaction. So I would say that the role of porn in conscious sexuality is that they veer off from one another and yeah, and that there is, if we're aiming towards moving towards a more conscious, connected way of relating to our sexuality, at some point we're going to need to put the porn down.
Yeah.
We're going to need to put it down, and probably for good, for a long time, right? To separate ourselves from that way of relating to sex, so that we can enter a more full, whole, connected experience of our sexuality, and also return our faculties of sensitivity, right? So where we're not losing connection, or I should say even losing sensitivity in our genitals, that often gets overamped through the imagery and the dopamine hits to the brain and the constant stimulation, right? That we can actually put that down and return to a more connected space because our sexuality has so much power in and of itself. I mean, it's such a powerful life force. It is life force in action, right? And so to actually tap into that reservoir of creative spark bubbling through us is so potent and beautiful. I wouldn't want any of us to tamp it down with imagery that doesn't actually relate to what's actually occurring here in this body. Because in that, there is so much available to us. And yeah, so I'm for that.
Thank you.
Wow.
Booster.
Amazing. Yes. Oh, I just want to say thank you, Triambika. You're fucking amazing. So clear, so to the point. I'm just like impressed. Thank you. Wow. Well, I just want to add, and having worked with sex offenders and sex addicts for 7 years in clinical practice, I've sat with many men in particularly who found their first outlet or inlet to their sexuality through porn. It was the only thing that was available for them for a very long time. And it was available for them as a way to cope with life, as a way to cope with being bullied, feeling outside, not picked, not having access to a sexual partner. This was what was there. And it was there continually in increasing amounts and for free and more edgy. And it just kind of, it really became an addiction. It's a super stimuli. It's not real. It's like taking cocaine, versus, having a cup of coffee, right? So I would say my heart goes out to the human population who is so neglected when it comes to just connection to self and connection to other, and let alone even less connection to conscious sexual interactions. That porn fills a huge gap in our culture in lack of education. So for that, I would say it serves as a foundation of sexual education. As fucked up as it is, that's kind of what's there. So going, deep breath.
Thank
Yeah, so I just want to add that piece as a way to just open my heart to all the people I've met who've been really torn apart and have their life and their families' lives torn apart because of this incredibly addictive activity as watching porn. And I also completely subscribe to everything that Triambika was speaking about in terms of not shaming it. But I think I'm going to cap it there.
Thank you, Booster. What do you think, Jordan?
I think several things. The first thought that I had when you brought up pornography and its role in, a conscious sexuality playing field is, this quote of, you can't get enough of that which doesn't satisfy you. Like, you can binge on candy or, white bread, peanut butter sandwiches forever. And if there isn't a real range of nutrients in the thing, you can stuff your face with it forever. Is it actually hitting the spot? Is it really the most nutritive, nourishing, productive path for the thing you're actually looking for to hit, or is it just the kind of endless hamster wheel that never really gets there? And so, yeah, I'm on the same page as both these huge-hearted people. I have no moralistic issue with porn. I have friends who've been sex workers and worked in the porn industry, and I get it. It's very scratching an itch that, you know, is in the collective psychological, you know, blind spot, or just a missing place where we're not really being deeply nourished. It makes sense. It makes total sense that it's there. And yeah, is it really giving you the nutrients you're looking for when you're going after a thing that you think you're going after? So, you know, is it productive, or is it leading you away from your goal of really being connected to actually having your needs met?
So I think this is the perfect, thank you, Jordan. This is a perfect moment to call all of the people watching us. If you have any question to any of our panelists, you can do it. You can share your questions in the chat. So we will have the last part of the conversation dedicated to Q&A. So please share whatever you would like to know, share any question to us. And as life is lived through experiences, let's talk about the practical ways we can implement this conscious sexuality in our lives. So maybe you could share some of your experiences with your clients. Booster, after so many years of helping people become more alive and connected, helping them to improve quality of life, what is the main practice of your work, and how do you help people become aware of this innate power in them?
Well, a little bit like I started this whole conversation with you guys, is that I begin to just name what's happening in my own body.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's something that helps me stay more grounded in the here and now. And this is where I'm locating my intelligence. I can tell inside what's going on versus how I interpret what's going on and the stories I spin. And also, as I'm noticing perhaps this tightening, you know, I can explore it by going consciously into the tightening and explore the pain there. I can relate to it, but I can also potentially use this to actually change my state of my body. Feel my lengthening spine, my opening chest, and hear my voice deepening a little bit. And I'm beginning to breathe a little slower. And all of a sudden, my thoughts are less rapid. And I feel more subtle sensations in my fingertips and more saliva in my mouth. And there's a certain hunger, curiosity. A certain presence begin to kind of pour into my experience. And actually begin to look at the faces on the screen. And actually take you in.
Yes, this was really practical.
Right?
Yeah.
As demoed by Booster.
Intro dive.
Intro dive. Nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's the way you're helping people to activate this energy, to be more aware. Triambika, how does one move from being stuck in old patterns and to be self-empowered, to make this huge jump? Maybe with a baby steps. Oh, can you please, Triambika,
Microphone.
microphone.
Yikes. I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question was, how does one move from being stuck in old patterns to becoming self-empowered?
Yeah.
What are the baby steps? Now, I realize that there are many ways that one could get out of old patterns to become self-empowered. There are many paths. And the path that I most align with is, in order to address these stuck old patterns, we must address the emotional body. We often try to think our way out of our patterns. We try to tell ourselves a different story about our patterns, which is helpful to a point. But the fact is that um, we get stuck because there's often a vested interest in keeping ourselves stuck, right? There's survival, there's fear, there's different reasons why it's like it's easier to stay stuck, as uncomfortable as that is. And so we want to shake things up. We want to like literally like tremble things through us so that we aren't staying in that stagnant, stuck place or the way of thinking. Stuck patterns could be around relationship, ways that we operate around relationships, the relationships that we keep choosing, or the behavior patterns we keep getting stuck in. Since we're talking about sexuality, it could also just be around, the ways in which we shut down every time somebody approaches us. There's patterns, all kinds of patterns, right? I won't go into all those patterns, but the fact is that a pattern that gets stuck, to me, speaks of a type of contraction. There's a contraction. And Booster's been speaking about it so beautifully. Like he can feel and sense the subtle ways that his body might be contracting or expanding at any given moment. And in that contraction, oftentimes behind that contraction, there is an emotion. There's feelings. There's experiences that have been lodged in the body and we've held them down, and we created a pattern, a stuckness around it so that we can function, so that we can operate in survival. So how do we move from that space to self-empowerment is to actually shake up the emotional body in the way that I see things, right? Where we get to actually do work to access what is underneath the pattern and be willing to feel more sensation as well as feel more of the emotion, and be able to have tools to activate and release, to shake things up. When I feel an emotion, I feel stuck. I'm stuck in a loop. My head is looping. What am I going to do? What I do is I actually start to shake. I start to shake and tremble and release so that my body and my mind don't get caught up in more of that stuck pattern, right? I want to actually go the opposite direction a bit and connect to physical movement. And I also use a lot of sound, right? How do I break through? How do I bring sound, vocalizing, so that the sound that's coming through me is actually louder than the voice in my head that's keeping me in the stuck loop? So I work a lot with breath and sound and movement to let there be more space, right? And that being able to voice and vocalize that pattern and give it some sound. I'm like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. This isn't where I want to be stuck. I don't want to.
Woohoo!
Shake things up.
Shake, baby.
So we can shake things off and create more space. That's what we want. We literally want to create more space, because that stuck pattern is just keeping us locked down. How do we create more space? How do you create more space? And some version of that breath and sound and movement to open up and release. And what might be released is actually a lot of the fear and the shame and the guilt that we've been holding on to. So we want to kind of almost create like what we call a radical discontinuity, right? From how we operate to try to just figure it out. And let me just stay in my lane and stay in my mental pattern so that I can try to figure it out from this place, which isn't going to get us anywhere because it's the same pattern that got us there, create this in a way that creates discontinuation of how we normally operate, right? Most people aren't shaking and sounding and breathing in that way, but we start to shake things up and we're able to loosen the grip of the pattern and bring us into more sense of ourself from which our self-empowerment can arise.
Yes, this question is very important from the aspect of the women in the Balkan and in the region, in order to help them to realize how to get rid of this shame and guilt and everything that suffocates their sexuality, that is really typical for our region after all the wars and things happened here. So thank you for sharing this. Jordan, what would you say, based on your so far experience, is the thing that people are mostly confused about when it comes to sex, and what can they do better to understand, and where they can look for solutions to these questions?
Yeah, I think the single greatest thing that suffocates most relationships, most sex lives of the clients that I've met and worked with is the gap between reality and expectations, like just the volume of expectations, the pressure of here's how I have to show up and perform. You know, if my sexual stamina is, you know, I can fuck for hours, then I'm failing. If I don't orgasm every time, if I don't squirt, if I don't, like, whatever the stories sound like of, you know, the performative correct way of showing up to impress or validate our partner on the egoic level, and people really buckle under the weight out of all of the stories, societal scripts, a lot of the messages that we do get from pornography of here's the correct way to be a sexual being. And so I think the first step, as with any awakening process, is just awareness of realizing that, okay, there isn't just the one correct linear way of being sexual with another person that has to go A, B, C, D, E, finish. It's a dance. We can just go and swim in this emotional, loving soup for a while and see what emerges. Like, you don't plan a freestyle dance ahead of time with all the steps. And yet people do this with their sex lives, with their relationship to what the sexual script is when it's being correct. And so, yeah, further upstream things that we can do for that. Just, you know, only having sex with people that we feel deeply safe with, slowing down, connecting to our bodies. If there is, you know, as Booster beautifully modeled in his first question response round, of if you notice a tightening in your chest or constriction in your throat or some internalized pressure of, oh, I haven't gotten hard immediately and I need to soon or I'll be in trouble and things will go well, name that. You know, the last thing the ego wants is to be busted and to have someone, you know, to have the owner of that flaccid penis say, hey, I'm actually just a little bit in my head right now and I just need to take a few minutes and maybe slow down, or let's just lay down and kiss, or I need to clear something or name something. Like, just bust the story, bust the thing in your mind and go, here's what's real right now. Because by naming what's real and by being with what's real, like, that is its own dance. That is its own form of sexuality, is letting go of all the weight of the should thinking of I should be performing or showing up in a certain way. I think that's the biggest piece, is just being aware of, what am I telling myself I need to do perfectly right now? And how is that total bullshit?
Thank you very much. So let's share with the audience now some tips and tricks, practical advices that they can use in their everyday life to improve and be better, to better use this potential and creative energy that lies in all of us. So what's a good way to integrate this into everyday life? Jordan, is there one thing that you'd love to tell your younger self about sex and relationships?
This is inside out work. It starts with your relationship to your body, to your emotions, to your desire, to your arousal arc. How are you feeling? You can slow down and really be with yourself You don't have to perform or look impressive. Just slow down, take a breath, and be with what is real.
So there is a myth that sex can last more than 15 minutes. Is that truth? And what do you have to say about this? Maybe to share some advice.
I mean, sex can be 24/7. Like if you're open to being fucked by life, life is always, you know, nourishing and penetrating. Like, so yes, it can very much last for longer than 15 minutes, both in the most reductive sexual stamina way. Like, sure, if you breathe a lot and your major muscle groups are relaxed, you can totally build up sexual stamina if that's a thing that your partner even wants you to build up. Because sometimes men have the story that my partner wants me to be able to have penetrative sex for 3 hours. Maybe that's deeply false and not at all what your partner wants. So you can reality check that. And yeah, I think that, you know, a lot of conscious sexuality should last longer than 15 minutes, but redefining what you are labeling as sex, because sex is not at all just, you know, penetration or what you see in the majority of what pornography looks like. Sex is slowing down and connecting and being loving and kissing and massaging. It's everything. So
nice.
Many layers of yes.
Thank you, Jordan. Booster, what is your practical advice, an easy tool for our audience that the audience can take and use in everyday life?
Yeah, this is, for me, it's a trick question, because in a way, what I would like to start with, in a way, metaphorically, but also as an invitation to consider that no one really knows. Like no one has any clue. Like that's where we need to start. So in a way, the part of you that I can teach a trick or a tool, or like, it can so easily become, oh, maybe I can just do that. Then I will avoid what Jordan is saying, like, hey, I'm a little bit not getting it up and I'm in my head about it. That's really courageous. That's really uncomfortable to own your soft cock. Really. I mean, it's a lot of pressure, like mentally on men. I mean, I just remember in my mid-20s, I had this incredible experience that changed everything, where I'm at this place where I'm exploring my sexuality. I am really tired and I'm running this script. I need to be Tarzan and make her Jane, you know, like Tarzan and Jane, this man and woman, right? And for me to be Tarzan, I need to be hard all the time, because if I'm soft, she might think that I'm gay or that I don't think her being attractive, and that would be horrible. I need to give her an orgasm, because that's what men does. That men pleases the women, and I need to come. So all those things need to happen. This was like a script. And then at this moment, I began to be soft. And I was like, I was working. I was like, come on, like, let's just work this, work that. And in order to actually continue with my play act, I thought about somebody else in kind of a naughty kind of situation to get my fantasy to make me hard again. And very soon she said, hey, where did you go? And I was like, what? In that moment, I saw my girlfriends who I thought, who weren't aware that I had done that same trip on. So I was so embarrassed. I just told her, like, this is what I did. And she was so accepting, so loving, so embracing. It just changed my whole life. Yeah. And then within that intimacy, with that meeting point, all of a sudden I became really hard. But now my whole body was soft. And it was amazing. I felt my sexuality in my whole body. And I was like, wow. And when I was soft again, it was like, hey, there you are again. And then it become hard and we were like animals, like fucking, and then soft again. Wow, here you are again. Yay, you're doing it. Became such an imprint. So I would say, like, to give tricks and tools, and it's so important not to build it on the ego, build it on that part that want to avoid that really scary moment of being naked. Like, for real, like, I don't know how to get it up, and I'm really judging myself. I really want to perform on you, but because you're so hot, but I don't can't. I don't know. Like, get real. For me, it's not a trick. It's a skill for life. That's going to change everything. Not just sex, but the way you lead your life, the way you show up for your children, the way you experience God. It's such a, like, that congruency is it. That truth will set us free.
Thank
Right?
you, Peter. Thank you very much. Triambika, what can we do in everyday life, start doing in order to begin the journey of liberating our sexual self?
So I was reading a little bit of the questions, kind of just glancing some of the questions. So I'm inspired to say that so often we believe that our sexuality needs to be limited because the people that we're engaging with are limited, right? That I can't be in my full sexual expression because I don't have partners available to me that aren't up to that level, or aren't very conscious, or simply want to be physical. And and it's true that it's but the way we attract partners that can meet us is by becoming that lover for ourselves. And to become that lover for ourselves, it means that I bring my masculine and my feminine together in my body. And a practice that you can do every single day is self-pleasure. And self-pleasure is different from masturbating in my mind. Self-pleasure is actually giving pleasure to this body and learning what my body wants. What does it need? What is it like right now? Maybe I want to be scratched or massaged, or maybe I want to be slapped a little bit, or very soft, sensual touch, and discover parts of my body and places around my genitalia and erotic zones that inspire a sort of a nice sensation, like, oh, I didn't even know that I liked that. I probably would like it if somebody else did that too, right? To learn about what pleasures us through our own touch, right? Through our own heart coming out through our arms and through our hands, like loving ourselves with touch, which we can do every single day. It doesn't have to end in a climax. It could be any kind of pleasuring and touching ourselves. Connecting to our own pleasure and connecting our breath to our pleasure, so that when we are with a partner, be it that they might be less conscious or unaware or more just physical, and we can say, hey, you know what, can we slow down a minute? As Jordan was saying, can we slow down a minute? I'd like to ask us to slow down. There's something I would really love to experience. Would you touch me this way? Right? And ask, like, learn to ask for what we want. So often we don't even know what we want. We just know that the movie showed us this, so I guess that's what I'm supposed to like, so I guess I'm going to do it that way. And many of us haven't stopped to slow down to really say, well, what do I want? What do I like? What would I enjoy right now? And then to be willing to open our mouth and say what we want. And if this trouble is in saying what we want because you've had a pattern of not saying what you want your whole life, that's the practice. Learn to break that habit. Learn to bust through that one right there. Because when we are with another person, we can't expect or hope that they're going to be more conscious and awake and embodied than we are so that they can give us the experience we want. No. That's totally disempowering. The empowerment comes through communicating and saying what it is that we want, but first knowing what it is, first getting access to what do I like, what do I want. And often we can discover that in the moment with a partner, but it's so much easier when we're with ourselves, right? When we're actually connecting to our body, connecting to pleasuring ourselves, our whole body, not just our genitals, but like my face. I like my hair rubbed. I like my lips touched. What do you like on your neck? Like actually getting connected with pleasure in yourself, and then learning about yourself and communicating that to another, bringing them to the level that you want them to be by sharing that conversation, because they don't know either. They have no idea. They watch the same porn you watched.
Thank you. So we have time for Q&As now. We selected a couple of questions. Triambika, the first question from the audience is, what can I do to have more interesting sex life with my partner? I would like to hear and see for examples. Thanks a lot. I think you already answered this question, huh? Sort of.
Yeah. Yes, sort of. Definitely everything I just said would apply to that. But I would add, with a partner, long-term committed relationship, to understand that when we are in a long-term committed relationship, the security and safety and everything that we want from that long-term communication, long-term relationship, is the stark opposite of what we had at the beginning of the relationship, which is the risk and the passion that we started with, right? There was like, oh, I don't know where this is going. I just want to have this experience. And there's like this kind of risky spontaneity to it. And then when we settle into what our deeper emotional needs are for safety and security, we then have committed relationship, but sex looks very different after a period of time. So just to know that there's nothing wrong that sex may have changed. It might have gone a little flat. There's nothing wrong that it got there. The key, though, is that if you're both really wanting and committed to bringing it back into more fullness and enjoyment, to start seeing sex as a practice and not just something you do on a Friday night after you've watched Netflix for a while and maybe then you go to sleep. Like that's like, okay, let's just get it done. And it doesn't really carry that much weight to it. But actually start having sex earlier in the day, in the morning or in the middle of the day when you have more energy, and make it a practice. I would say at least a weekly practice, if not every morning practice, where it's like, this is our time to go into our sacred sensual space together, where we bond and we breathe together and allow it to be something that you cultivate, right? Sex is something to cultivate. It's not just something you do once in a while. If you want conscious sexuality, you cultivate that by bringing in a conscious element of like, this is our way that we bond and create love in our life, in our relationship. And to bring more energy into that, I would say, bring more breath, more sound, and more pelvic thrusts.
Thank you. Booster, any tips on practical, oh no, sorry, Jordan, any tips on practical everyday practices to be more mindful of your sexuality? That's one of the questions.
To be more mindful of your sexuality. And there's an aspect of recognizing, like, how do we be more aware of air or oxygen? Like, it is really so everywhere. You know, if you felt to the person who's asking this question and anyone who's watching currently, if you feel the present moment like your perfect lover, you know, pressing their bare torso against your bare torso right now, that is every moment. Like, it's less what is the heady step that I can do to get there, as much as, can you feel them? Can you feel him? Can you feel her right now? Can you feel the hairs on your forearm? Can you feel where in your mouth your tongue is currently? Like, are you sensitive and receptive enough to what life is constantly offering you to feel into the, abundance of buzzing energy in your genitals, in your skin, in your environment, or the numbness or sleepiness of the lack or the disconnect? So that's maybe the more 30,000 foot view. And also you can self-pleasure daily. That's going back to Triambika's point. By being in a constant conversation, you're not constant, but a daily relationship with your body, with your pleasure, with your genitals, you really can't veer that far off the path when, just like if you had a child or partner or a best friend who you spoke to daily, that relationship would be nurtured by your presence and by your frequency of attention. Whereas if you don't call your best friend, you only call them once per year, there's only going to be a certain amount of connection or depth or resonance to that relationship. So you put in the time, you slow down, you dialogue or touch with your energy, with your body, and you will reap the rewards pretty quickly.
Thank you, Jordan. Booster, how do other areas of life improve when we awaken conscious sexuality? It's a third question.
Yeah, it's a good one. For me, when I dive into conscious exploration of my sexuality, my creativity just skyrockets. For example, I remember at that same place where I was telling the story from last time, I had this pattern. When I saw an attractive woman, I would go into to this pattern that I had developed as a boy, because I stammered a lot, so I couldn't speak and initiate contact. So I became really cute and not so dangerous. And so in this moment, I saw this very attractive woman, and I became this little boy. And then I saw that another guy came up and took her off the dance floor, and all of a sudden I was judging her. She went from this, oh my God, she might be the wife, to like, whoa, she's cheap. So I was realizing, I haven't even talked to her, and I'm having these stories like, and I'm not getting laid. Like there's some problem I have. So next time I said, next time I see an attractive woman, I'm going to just take a step towards her. So I saw an attractive woman a few days later, and I just began to just feel this panic again, cold sweating, but I began to literally just step towards her. And she was sitting on the bar, just like looking at me like as if there was this train coming at her, like, and I'm like, and out of my mouth came this like, I don't know how to do this, but I found you attractive. And I just kept walking, and she was like laughing and like, I don't know how to do this too. And we just had a drink and had a conversation. But that whole facing my fear of just doing something different, whatever you call that radical pattern interrupt, or whatever you said, all of a sudden I go back home, and at the time being, I'm a choreographer, I'm an artist, I just made this piece. I begin to call, I basically just call the boss of the opera house and the boss of this stage, and had conversation with them. And in the second meeting, the boss of the opera house asked me, so when do you want the stage? So it was like this, there's quantum leaps available to us that are so beyond our mind, as we can begin to really see that there's just one desire. There's just one breath. There's just one, it's just all one. It isn't a sexual, it's just life that wants to be experienced and met and shared. And I have blocks because, you will judge me like I judge myself, or you will abandon me like I abandon myself, or you will not want me like I don't want myself. It's like, but I do it anyhow. Like, it's amazing what fear then becomes. Fear becomes your guide. Like, I'm scared. Wow, I'm going to grow beyond it, and I'm going to feel the freedom and the adventure just right there. So it's, for me, sexuality is my creativity. My creativity is my sexuality. That's why if I'm stuck in my sexuality, I have to look, because I'm stuck everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And sometimes I am. I mean, I'm stuck. I'm human. I develop routines. I avoid shit all the time. I mean, I'm human. So don't look at me like some kind of expert that does it all. No, I'm teaching because I need to be taught all the time. I'm really stubborn, holding on to my traumas and my dramas and my protections and my project, whatever, like, don't change me. I want to be me.
Thank you, Booster. Speaking of trauma, Triambika, one more question. What to do to overcome and resolve a sexual trauma and reawake sexual drive after a long relationship where both communication and intimacy was a huge issue?
Okay, that's a big question. I know, and I know Booster probably also has some really good responses to trauma, but can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, just a second. They had a big issue with, just a second. What to do to overcome and resolve a sexual trauma and reawake sexual drive after a long relationship where both communication and intimacy was a huge issue?
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I think my first curiosity is, was the trauma caused by the current relationship? Sometimes it's really hard. We don't know, right? Sometimes it's very hard to work with trauma when the person is actually still in a situation that trauma is occurring. So I would say if it's from the relationship, we need to get you to a safe place where you can then work with the trauma. But if, say, for example, the trauma happened at another stage in life and brought that into the relationship, get support. I mean, there's things that you can do on your own, but why would you want to when there's so many amazing individuals that can work with you? And reach out. Like, this isn't, we try to sort of think that, oh, I'm stronger than this, or I've got this, because you're functioning as an adult in other areas of your life. But trauma itself, we want to nurture and investigate what's going on, nurture the rest of the being, and investigate what's going on and how to really start to excavate those pieces so that they don't have to have such a strong hole. And it can be very tricky also, depending on how strong the trauma was. We don't want to keep reactivating it through triggers that happen in other relationships. We don't want to make every future partner pay for something that somebody did 20 years ago. So the best thing that I would say is, rather than offering you some tips or tricks, because I can say, well, you can do this or that, but really it's going to work best when you get support and you get others, a team of people or healers, whether it's a therapist or trauma-informed guide or a coach of some kind, or working through workshops and seminars that specialize in that. I'd say go discover how to loosen that trauma through some support, and then come with those tools and do them every day if needed. I think that's the most responsible thing I can say right now, rather than just giving you some tool that's going to tell you that's going to heal your trauma, when it's like, we don't really know. We don't know how big that trauma is or when it happened. And again, if it's something that's occurring in your current relationship, you're going to need to go and take yourself away from that relationship for a period of time to get to a safe place to actually work with what's there. And then as far as the second question, basically how to come back to a good place, a sensual space after there's been a lot of, I can't remember the question exactly. But it sounds to me, regardless, it sounds to me like there's some healing that needs to happen between the two of you. And if you're in a partnership where there's been hurt and damage and yelling or screaming or bad words spoken, things like that, like those things impact our emotional body, they impact our confidence levels, they trigger our insecurities, and we can't be in a totally easeful, relaxed, open state with our partner now, because there's so much that's been activated. So I would really support the couple to heal those pieces individually and together. And that, of course, that could also mean working with guides, therapists, coaches, and things like that. But recognizing that when we're triggering one another back and forth, it's like a loop. So if you can take one partner who's in a better, maybe more in a stable place in that moment, and just really fully hold space for the other partner to have an emotional experience, to share their vulnerabilities, their insecurities, whatever's there, to really start to unload themselves and to be held and witnessed without judgment, without interruption, without trying to fix them, just simply hold them and see and try to be compassionate and have some empathy for their experience, right? And back and forth. And to do that together is a beautiful process when there can be more empathy. So I'd say more empathy. And the other last thing I want to say to those partners is more gratitude. More gratitude, because if there's a chance to save this relationship and have it be good, and there's a chance for healing, so much can come from appreciation. Because a lot of times part of what's got us fired up is that we're not feeling seen or held or appreciated. So if a partner's willing to bring more appreciation and less criticism, there's going to be more healing. Healing can happen more rapidly between a partnership that way.
Thank you, Triambika. We have 2 or 3 questions more. I hope we will make it. Thank you for an amazing webinar. I'm a very sensitive person, and I normally live the way you are telling, conscious of my body and open for others and ready to take them in. The thing I notice is that a majority of people tend to be closed, cold, and wearing a mask. That is why I often feel like beating my head against the wall. It is especially sad when you meet a person you like and this person puts up a wall, is not ready to take you in. Is it possible to find the door to such a person? Booster, what do you think?
Wow. Yeah, I meet many of those people in my trainings. They come to these trainings because they have this yearning, and they're part of a culture of embodiment. They're part of movement. They're part of the Ista field or embodied intimacy, or they've been exploring Tantra, and they're really wanting to be met from within themselves. And many of them have tried to meet consciously, vulnerably, honestly in other cultures and been met by a wall or so on. So I would say come and explore where other people also want to explore. What is it like to take off the mask and get naked and begin to explore within this laboratory? I would say, like, stop looking and start exploring it, but without the goal to meet the one, but to meet yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, like coming from that place, like, well, you can expect people to be like that. Like, because no one really knows how to do intimacy or sexuality in any conscious way because they don't have education. How can you expect them to? Let's actually come to a place where there are other people who would like to study and learn and experiment and discover it together. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Booster. Jordan, advice for a man, coming back to the previous question, how to make intercourse last longer?
The age-old question. Yeah, I mean, first I would audit the intention behind the desire, what the reason is, what the why is behind it. If it is from the egoic, performative, assuming my partner needs this from me, I would just reality test that and go, what is this coming from? And is the desire clean and true and real? Before going down this path, is it something that I really need and have to have? And if it is, if the average stamina lasting time of penetrative sex or whatever kind of sexual play is less than you want it to be, I'd say some of the highest leverage things you can do are to slow way down in the kind of onboarding or on-ramping or starting up of being sexual. So, just drastically extending what is commonly referred to as foreplay. Foreplay is still part of sex. It isn't before the play, like only penetrative sex is the main event and the correct sex piece. Yeah, I mean, really, men tend to come faster than they want to when they are rushing, when they are barely breathing, and when their bodies are very tense. So if you do the antithesis of those things, if you slow down, you have a lot of very spacious, safe foreplay or sexual play connection. You allow yourself to breathe more deeply before sex and during sex, and you put some intermittent awareness on relaxing your body on the literal, like, muscular level. Those things will do a lot. And with using those things as a practice, if there's still challenge or struggle in that realm, then also remember that sex is not the linear A, B, C, D, E, but A, F, Z, it's like it's jumping around. There's no correct structure. So if you find yourself approaching orgasm faster than you want to during penetrative sex, you can slow down, you can switch positions, you can switch sexual acts. You don't just have to be doing the correct thing perfectly. You can change dance moves. And if that gives your genitals a minute or several minutes to calm down and breathe and get back to, 70% hard erection versus, on the precipice of ejaculation, then great. Let yourself have some different dance steps.
Thanks, Jordan. And the last question is for Triambika. What advice is for the women who have problems with to achieve orgasm?
Can I recommend a book?
Of course.
I do. I really love this book. I have it right here. It's called Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. And I want to really support this book because she's written an amazing experience here of understanding the differences between pleasure, arousal, and orgasm, and how they all play a part, but they're different in every body, right? That we're not just one, it's not just like a blanket statement for all bodies. So a lot of times orgasm is conducive to the context of our life. It's not like our where our minds are and how distracted we become because we have a lot going on in our world. Orgasm may or may not happen because of that, or it'll be a very weak orgasm versus a very strong orgasm. So I'm just noticing that you all are frozen. Am I frozen also?
No.
I hope not. No? Okay, good.
Oh, you're not.
All right. Good. Yeah, so the context of your life has a lot to do with orgasm. Everyone can achieve orgasm, some never will, but most of us have that functionality. We can achieve it, but we also want to think about it's like our sexuality isn't this separate compartment that lives separate from us and the rest of our life. It is one, right? The context of our life impacts our orgasm just as much as our orgasm impacts the context of our life. And so we want to recognize that whatever's happening around us, if we're in a house that needs the dishes cleaned and there's dust on the fan and there's, things that are going on and we're distracted by all that, which a lot of times female minds are very distracted by what's going on around them. It's going to be a lot harder to achieve that orgasm that we want. So being able to be in a place, that's why hotel sex is so good, because we don't have to clean up. We don't care what the curtains look like. We're able to just completely let go of what's around us and be in our body. And that's the key, is being in our body and tuning in more to that sensory experience, to the sensations that your body is delivering to you, right? And really allowing our minds, like reel back the mind that wants to jump out and think about what's happening next or something that happened yesterday, and actually go deeper into the sensory experience. That's going to support a lot. But also there's ways that we can arrive at that place by knowing, again, what turns us on. You know, do we need to be aroused a bit more before our body says yes to orgasm? Oftentimes we do. Many of us do. And to not deny ourselves that, to not say, oh, I don't want to be a bother, let's just hurry up and get this, you know, to happen, right? A lot of us are, you know, let's just hurry up and make the sex happen because that needs to happen, so let's get it going. And we miss over the crucial period where our body is entering into an engorged state where it can be more responsive to orgasm. There's a lot more I want to say about that. I realize we're running low on time, so I'm going to leave it there. I want to recommend that book, and of course anything else, I'd be happy to answer more questions.
Thank you, Triambika. Thank you all. This has been amazing, and now we have a special announcement to make. Be the first to find out and to register. This September 15th to 20th, Exit and Tantra Spirit Fest will organize a 6-day life-changing experience in the powerful surroundings, a secret location at one of the most beautiful beaches in the world that will take you on a journey of the self-discovery, deep and true connection with yourself and the world. The world leading experts in Tantra and self-empowerment will be with you on this amazing and once-in-a-lifetime experience. I hope I will see you guys there too. We invite you to join us and use this special offer to be among the first to register for early bird packages via the link that we just shared in our chat box. So follow us for more info. And thank you for being with us. I hope we will see each other in September. See you guys, and thank you a lot for sharing this knowledge, for sharing the love and everything and the energy. Thank you so much.